Okay, in this first lecture, I'm going to be talking a little bit about opportunity recognition and how to come up with new ideas to spot opportunities in the marketplace among customers um, within an industry in terms of a problem, a gap that others do not see. So we're talking about opportunity recognition, and that's a big thing that sets entrepreneurs apart from everyone else. Their ability to see the potential that others overlook or they're not looking for. So finding new products, new services that could potentially be profitable. Um, Entrepreneurial alertness is a key term here, and it's kind of like a skill. Alertness refers to the readiness to act, the ability to notice business opportunities and to act on them, but also the skill once you are an entrepreneur, once you have a business, um, you may be called upon to shift your focus, to do something new, to do something different, to introduce new services, to discontinue old services. Alertness is the ability, the wherewithal to be able to make those decisions when they are called for. So alertness refers to the capability of being alert to the opportunities that already exist and are out there waiting to be noticed that are outside your business, but you use what it is that you can do to make those decisions. The idea here is prior knowledge. We need the opportunities that we see as entrepreneurs to be aligned with our own knowledge, experiences, and aspirations. And they kind of naturally are aligned to that, right? You are much more likely to spot an opportunity that's related to something that you're interested in, right? So maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's an industry that you're in, a business that you work for. You notice a problem, or there's some kind of product or service that's not really out there, or what's out there is kind of shoddy, and you think it could be a lot better. Those prior knowledge, those prior experiences are important in the alertness and opportunity recognition process. They actually give you more alertness. And ultimately, those opportunities are easier to exploit, right? Because you have that background and expertise, because you've had those experiences, you know what the customer's looking for, you know the shortcomings perhaps in the current business models that are out there, and you can possibly correct those based on your prior knowledge. Okay, so, lots of people, especially in a class where there's entrepreneurship majors and minors, and they've had multiple entrepreneurship classes, have maybe lots of ideas. You know, Joe Schmo and the general public may or may not have many entrepreneurial ideas, but a lot of people come up with lots of ideas. We want to be able to identify, good ideas from poor ideas so that we can spend more time thinking about the good ones. Just some basics for what constitutes a winning idea. It needs to serve an important consumer need. There needs to be some kind of pain point that it's based around. You guys have heard this. It needs to have readily recognized utility and user benefits. The key part of that second one is the readily recognized thing aspect of it. If you can't easily market what it is that you're doing as being new and unique, if all you can say is, we're better than the others, but you can't really articulate what it is, customers are going to have a hard time seeing what it is about your business idea, about your product or service that's better than what's already out there. Third one, it's affordable to a large group of potential customers. So there needs to be a market, right? There needs to be a customer base that's more than just, just a few people that are exactly like you and see the pain point that you see, unless, there is the instance where what you're selling is such a high dollar value that you don't need that many customers. But in general, you need a large pool of potential customers to justify creating a business around something. This slide is a list of three types of ideas that can develop into startups. The reason for this slide is because I just didn't want you guys to ignore a potential category of new ideas. Sometimes we, based on our own experience, we get hyper focused on one type of idea. Really, there's three major types of ideas. So the first type is a new market idea. And these are ideas centered around providing customers with a product or a service that doesn't exist in a particular market, but that exists somewhere else. So most new businesses fall into this category, replicating an existing business model in a new market. Kind of the idea is marrying the right business model with the right market here. This can be as simple as finding a new profitable location for something that's been done a million times, right? I could find an area that needs a gas station. I'll give you an example, and I haven't been up there in a little while since we moved, but the Sulphur Springs road exit on 840, I thought, a gas station would really go there. There's tons of traffic there, and there's not a gas station within a few miles of that, the kind of intersection there. So if you put a gas station at that exit, I think one would go. There's nothing new or particularly interesting about a new gas station. It's just that, if there's an existing business model that could work somewhere else, it makes sense to send it there. You may know of businesses in the Atlanta area that you feel like, hey, I could just do that exact same thing in Nashville, Tennessee. Or there may be businesses that are in, and this happens a lot, businesses that are working in Franklin, Tennessee, and kind of the next market that those entrepreneurs think about is Murfreesboro. And so, just the idea of borrowing something in one place and bringing that exact same product or service somewhere else. Okay, on the other extreme of new market startups are new technology based startups. And these are the highly original, highly inventive new businesses that are based around new technology, scientific breakthroughs. This type of business is high risk a lot of times because there's no definitive model of success to follow. In these companies, technology needs to be unique. It needs to be better than others currently available. But it also needs to be feasible to implement. So it's not just enough that there's this new technology available, but it's got to be something that you can make a viable service or product out of. And it needs to be focused on a market need that is deep enough there to generate potential sales. Founders need knowledge and skills to be able to understand the tech that's involved there well enough to build a profitable company around it. So here we're talking about cutting edge technology. Couple of examples are the companies that are building all of the sensors and other aspects of technology that are necessary for driverless cars. Companies that are building their business around 3D printing technology and doing new things with that. Some of the technologies aren't completely new. They're a decade or two old, but the applications, it's still a new technology, and the applications are still pretty novel, right? There's different things. I know, for example, with 3D printing, is MIT brought in a bunch of small and medium-sized business-type entrepreneurs to view 3D printing when it first came out. They brought in 10 different entrepreneurs, and 10 different innovative product ideas emerged from those 10 different entrepreneurs viewing the technology. They all had ideas from it because it was so groundbreaking, and those ideas that they had were specifically tied in with their prior knowledge, right? The knowledge of things that they understood. They were able to think of ideas that were able to market their background, right? To create something marketable. All different from one another. But that's the beauty of technology, right? The change is really revolutionary. The last one is new benefit ideas, and these are ideas that are based on offering customer benefits from new and improved products or better ways of performing old functions. So an example might be creating healthier food products that are still good, right? Less sugar, no saturated fat, etc., People want to buy those, even they're similar to the old product, but they're healthier. Computers have gotten faster, smaller, more powerful over time, right? And so they provide new benefits. They have the capability to run new apps, to do different things with gaming, to do different things with productivity, and those things are constantly evolving. It's not an existing business model per se, but it's not a revolutionary new technology either. It's kind of in the middle. It's a new benefit with existing technology. Lots of examples here that you could think of. The idea is basically, can we build a better mousetrap? And a lot of the new ideas that students come up with, for instance, in the entrepreneurship business plan contest, are usually in the new benefit category, right? There's some existing business model that we tweak to provide, to differentiate, to provide new benefits for customers. I mentioned common sources of startup ideas earlier, and here's a rundown of where those startup ideas come from. As you can see, uh, prior knowledge accounts for a lot of the new ideas. And so 45% of new ideas come from prior work experience, 16% come from a personal interest or a hobby. And if you move down there, 6% come from background in education or a family business. So that gets us up to 67%. Two-thirds of new ideas come because of some background that the entrepreneur has in a certain field, whether it's an interest or work or education. So from prior work experience, you may be able to modify an existing product, see problems in the business or industry that need to be addressed, improve a service, be a better supplier, a better way of hiring good employees. Um, you might duplicate the exact same business, but go to a new location that doesn't have that business. If you are unsure of your idea, the idea that you currently have, it may be a good idea to get some experience in the industry first, to feel like, to have confidence, hey, I can do this, or I can do this a better way. Hobbies and interests are another thing. I remember I had this idea, and it was an idea that had already been done, but I thought it would be great if baseball equipment companies like Wilson and Rawlings would sell a baseball glove that was already broken in, right? It's really hard when you get a new glove to catch the ball with it. You've got to break it in, and there's lots of different ways to do that, but it's never really good for the first few weeks or months that you have a new baseball glove. And I thought they should sell broken in baseball gloves. People would pay more for that. And I Googled it, and it turned out they were already there. So I needed a glove, so I just went ahead and bought one. There went my company idea, but you get the picture. It came from kind of a hobby or interest. And if you read entrepreneurs, startup stories, you'll see tons and tons of stories like that, where people saw something that they needed something they're really interested in, but there was a pain point, something that made it more difficult, and that's where they came up with their idea for their business. I have had students in the past that have really stood out to me because about once every month, and even after I had them in class, they come up to me, what do you think about this new idea that I've had? And just constantly rolling out new entrepreneurial ideas. And sometimes they were extremely varied and had nothing to do with each other. But the individual just seemed to have kind of a knack, or it may, in some cases, it wasn't even a knack. They weren't necessarily all that great at it, but a habit of thinking of new business ideas. And the truth of the matter is, if you think of enough business ideas, it becomes more and more likely that you find a good one, right? So, if I come up with, three ideas, you know, it could very well be that all three are duds. If I'm constantly thinking of ideas, if I dedicate my time, if my alertness is up, I talked about alertness and having that radar for looking around and seeing new opportunities that are out there in the marketplace. If my alertness is constantly up and I'm always generating new ideas, and I generate, let's say, one every week or one every 2 weeks, and I generate, over 20 in the course of a year. Well, at that point, maybe one or two of them actually, there's a good chance, playing the percentages, that the one or two is, actually something that could really go if it's executed correctly. What I would say about all that is that it's going to be much more effective if you can if you have some ways of thinking that allow you to generate these business ideas. And what you'll find from a lot of these is, going back to that notion of prior knowledge. The more prior knowledge you have, the more you're deeply embedded in a given field, the more likely it is you're going to be able to generate these new ideas. Whether it's around your hobby, whether it's around your existing job, whether it's around some pain point in a community that you've been around, especially if that's social entrepreneurship, you're more likely to come up with interesting ideas that are new when you are steeped in it, right? When you have that background. And it's interesting, a lot of people kind of falsely assume that outsiders are the ones that are going to have the great, unique, novel ideas that can really do things. Maybe that's true at times, but usually it's the people that are experts that can take that expertise and then come up with something unique that can really have high potential because it's based in reality. All right. So what are some things you can do? Well, you can borrow ideas from existing products and services in other industries. Steve Jobs, the graphical user interface, basically the ability to touch a screen, right, and navigate things on the screen rather than using like a third-party device like a keyboard or a mouse or buttons of some sort, is really the technology that boosted Apple, right? Steve Jobs didn't create that technology. He took that idea from Xerox. Xerox developed that in the 70s, and they're like, we don't really see the huge benefit here. I mean, our buttons work fine. They were thinking very limited in terms of, their copy machines and similar machines that, honestly, to this day, I don't really care if the copy machine has a button or if I can interface with the screen. Having a little bit of both is kind of handy. But Xerox didn't really see the big benefit there. They shelved the technology. Steve Jobs grabbed onto it. So borrowing an idea from an existing product or service or another industry, another business, especially if they shelve it, that really helps. Combine two businesses into one to create a market opening. There's a health focused business called Twisted Foods. They sell low calorie, like high protein, really good for you, high fiber meals that taste good. They also run a gym and they teach classes. And basically, what they try to do is sign people up for like a package deal, right? They get their money on both ends, from the classes and from the meal prep service. It's meal prep, not just recipes. And so it's like your all-in-one stop for fitness, right? So they combined two businesses into one, and that created a market opening. And more and more businesses in health, in fitness, are doing that. Begin with a problem in mind. Uber started like this, right? Either taxi rides were too expensive in one area, or they were, the same person found that it was too hard to get a taxi in other areas, and so the idea of Uber was born, right? You pre-schedule it, they pick you up. You don't have to rely on existing taxi services. Um, they're there for you, and in many cases, they're less expensive than traditional taxis. Uh, Dash Locker, another business started like this. Dash Locker was a dry cleaning service. Basically, it was for busy professionals in places like New York City and Washington, D.C. They set up lockers around the town. People could drop off their clothing on the way to work, and they'd set up an appointment that there was a place on the door, on the little locker, where you scanned your credit card, and Dash Locker would come and pick it up and do the dry cleaning, put it back in the spot that it was supposed to be in. You would go back and slide your card again to pay and get your clothes out. And it really took a lot of fuss um, out of cleaning your clothes. Number four. Number four is my least favorite. Recognize a hot trend and ride the wave. You need to be careful here. The problem with doing this is you you don't want to jump on a wave when it's already crested and it's on its way back down. Um, I know that there's a lot of people that, things are, they'll see something, oh, that's hot right now. I need to get in that. And, if you're too late, and it's hard to know if you're too late, um, and if, the only reason you're doing it's because it's a hot trend, the chances are you are going to be late to the game to perceive it. And if you do, the real profit opportunities are probably already going to be gone in a lot of cases, not all the time, but you've got to be careful with that is basically the takeaway here. Number 5, explore ways to improve an existing product or services function. You might be surprised it wasn't that long ago that suitcases with wheels came out, and you would think that as long as people have been traveling, that you would see these pull along suitcases maybe 100 years ago or even more. But that wasn't the case. They really came out in the 90s, and for the suitcase businesses that developed these, I think Samsonite was one of the first. They were extremely profitable. So a lot of times it's those really simple innovations that it's hard to believe people haven't seen before. I will say that, those are fewer and farther between, but it's still possible. It's still possible to come up with a new idea in that category. Number 6, think of how to streamline a customer's activities. And there's DashLocker again, right? They streamlined, they took a lot of time out of the process of doing laundry for busy professionals. And you're able to charge a premium when you can do that. Number 7, adapt an innovation to meet customer needs in different ways. Sheiks used some of the technology that Under Armour and others were using to get moisture away from athletes' bodies through clothes and applied it to bedding, right? To take away the sweat, to wick that away from people who are sleeping. So I think Michelle Marciniak, one of the Lady Vols, I saw a commercial for that the other day, and she was advertising it, I think, and I looked it up. It was her company. So kind of a Tennessee company there. Number 8, keep an idea on new technologies. This is a really important one. And there's lots of ways to do it. You want to keep your ear to the ground. You want to constantly be looking. And I guess this is kind of one of the big takeaways overall. An example of that is that MTSU and all universities, really, especially research schools, have technology transfer offices. And there's government offices that promote new tech as well. Basically, by looking and seeing what technology is available, you may come up with an idea like those business owners that saw the 3D printing at MIT, come up with ideas for that new technology. And to be honest, a lot of the new technology that's coming out of, say the physics department or the engineering department, there's not always, in fact, there's not usually, less than half the time, there's going to be a readily apparent of customer use that can be quickly employed to make a product. It may be an innovation that it's going to take 3 other innovations, and 30 years down the road, that's really going to be something. And that doesn't mean that the breakthrough doesn't have value. It's just it's not ready to be realized yet. And there's really, you guys may or may not be surprised, but lots and lots of innovations that we use in our daily lives came out of university technology transfer offices. I would say that reading industry and tech news can keep you abreast of all the new changes, and it can help spur your ideas, right? And you can read about what other people are doing with new technology. There may be a chance, somebody's forging ahead. You can borrow exactly what they're doing, but move it to a different, slightly different industry or a different geographic region or what have you, and utilize that. The main thing I want to say with number 8 is that it's a really good idea if you're an aspiring entrepreneur to take the time to keep your ear to the ground. This is where prior knowledge a lot of times comes from. It's not, you're not going to have prior knowledge by sitting in your room playing video games. You're probably not going to have a great new idea while you're doing that. You have to be externally focused on the market, on new technologies that are coming about, if you're going to be the person that finds those new ideas. and I would just challenge you guys to do this, and I'm not going to really bring this up again or check on you after this, but if you would say, hey, I'm going to spend 15 minutes a day, 2 times, maybe 3 times a week, trying to think of ideas. Don't expect miracles. Don't expect that you're going to come up with this great idea after one session or even after one week. Do that for 6 months. 6 months is not that long of a time in the grand scheme of your life. Write down everything that occurs to you in your 6 months. Every once in a while, go back and grade those ideas. And the ones that are getting good grades, start running those by people that would know, people that you can trust that won't steal your idea, that can give you really good feedback. And a lot of those ideas are going to really be screened out by those issues. Talk to your business professors, talk to your marketing professors, talk to people though specifically that are already in a similar industry, and they're going to know whether there's some viability there or not. Even talking to the bank, a banker would sometimes be a good thing to do. But do that for a while, and the chances, I'm not saying, oh, this is an automatic, you're automatically going to come up with this $1 million idea. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you've got a much higher chance of doing that if you sit down and do that. And so for people that are very, that are very much engaged with an area of the market, have certain interests or certain business background, do your brainstorming around those areas. Use your prior knowledge as the launching pad for your brainstorming sessions. Um, just an idea, just an idea.